The air in my parents' great room was thick with the smells of pine, roast turkey, and cheap judgment. It was Christmas Day, and the entire Ellis clan was present. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all gathered around the sprawling table that gleamed under my mother's best china. I, Sloane, sat quietly between my grandfather and a chattering cousin, pushing Brussels sprouts around my plate. The performance began with the dessert course. My father, Robert Ellis, patriarch and self-made real estate mogul, cleared his throat. It was his "I have an announcement" sound. The table fell into a respectful hush. As we reflect on our blessings this year, he began, his voice warm and paternal, I'm reminded of the importance of financial responsibility, of standing on your own 2 feet. His gaze, heavy and meaningful, landed on me. Some of us learn that lesson later than others. A polite, confused murmur rippled through the family. My sister, Fiona, seated across from me, gave a tiny, rehearsed sigh of disappointment. Now, I don't want to embarrass anyone, Dad continued, laying the trap with expert precision, but principles are principles. Sloane, honey, we love you, but your mother and I cannot, in good conscience, keep funding your lifestyle. The constant requests for money have to stop. You're 26. It's time to grow up. The silence this time was absolute, stunned. All eyes swiveled to me. My face burned, but not with shame, with a white-hot, clarifying fury. The requests he spoke of were a fiction. I hadn't asked them for a dime since I was 22, when I'd taken the small trust from my grandmother and used it as a down payment on a fledgling graphic design business. A business that, after 4 years of 80-hour weeks, was finally, quietly thriving. Fiona seized the moment. It's just so pathetic, Sloane, she said, her voice a perfect blend of sisterly concern and contempt. Always with your hand out, don't you have any pride? Nods around the table. Sympathetic clucks for my poor, put-upon parents. My mother looked down at her plate, a silent accomplice. This was their Christmas tradition. Not carols or stockings, but the annual ritual of putting me in my place, the dreamy, unreliable younger daughter, next to Fiona the lawyer, the golden child. Usually, I'd stammer a defense, which they'd drown out with more loving criticism. Usually, I'd leave the table in tears. But not this year. I looked at my father, at his performance of pained disappointment. I looked at Fiona's smug smirk. I saw the bank of faces all believing the story they'd been sold. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain that the last request was when I loaned him $15,000 2 years ago to cover a cash flow crunch in one of his projects, a loan he'd never repaid and I'd never mentioned. I didn't list the years of unpaid labor I'd done designing logos and brochures for his company. I didn't mention the business account statements in my bag that showed a 6-figure revenue year. I just smiled, a small, serene smile that didn't reach my eyes. I dabbed my mouth with my napkin, placed it neatly on the table, and stood up. You're absolutely right, Dad, I said, my voice clear and calm in the dead quiet. It's time I stood on my own 2 feet. I walked out of the dining room, through the foyer, and out the front door into the crisp Christmas evening. I didn't slam the door. I closed it with a soft, definitive click. The cold air was a shock, a baptism. I could hear the muffled, confused chatter erupt behind me. I pulled out my phone, my fingers steady despite the adrenaline singing in my veins. I scrolled past the family group chat already blowing up with "What's her problem?" and "So dramatic," and found the number for First Metropolitan Private Banking. It rang twice. Private Client Services, Jeffrey speaking. Jeffrey, it's Sloane Ellis, account holder for the Ellis Family Dynasty Trust Sub-Account 21. I need you to execute a full freeze, effective immediately. Authorization code Sierra Tango Alpha Romeo, final 21. A slight pause. Jeffrey was the unflappable manager who'd handled my grandmother's affairs, and now the complex trust she'd left in my control, with him as the primary beneficiary. He thought I was a clueless signatory. He didn't know I'd spent the last 3 years learning every intricacy of the trust, waiting for the moment he went too far. The account he'd just publicly shamed me for begging from was in fact the very account that funded his entire facade, and I had just turned off the tap.
The first call came before I'd even reached my apartment. It was my mother, her voice shrill with panic, not anger. "Sloan, what did you do? Your father is on the phone screaming. His card was declined at the country club when he tried to pay for dinner tomorrow. What is going on?" "I'm standing on my own 2 feet, Mom," I said evenly, unlocking my door. "Like Dad said I should. Maybe he should try it." I hung up. The next call was my father. The paternal warmth was gone, replaced by a feral, choking rage. "You little bitch, you freeze that account right now. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I do," I said, setting my bag down in my quiet, modern apartment, a space paid for by my business, not his trust. "I've stopped the flow of money from the trust you've been secretly draining, the trust I control, the one you told the entire family I was a beggar trying to steal from." Silence. Then a low, dangerous whisper. "You don't know what you're talking about. I have the statements, Dad. Every transfer to your shell company, Horizon Holdings, every consulting fee paid to Fiona's husband's firm, the $500,000 loan to cover your bad investment in the waterfront condos that never got built. The trust was for family welfare and education, not for covering your bad business bets and funding Fiona's McMansion." "You can't prove anything," he spat, but the confidence was cracking. "The forensic auditor from the bank will be contacting you tomorrow. Her name is Miss Chen. She's very thorough. I'd get your records in order." I ended the call and turned my phone off. I poured a glass of wine, turned on my favorite holiday movie, and slept more peacefully than I had in years. The next week was a symphony of chaos, played from the serene distance of my design studio. The freeze on sub-account 21 was a stone thrown into the stagnant pond of my father's financial house of cards. By Wednesday, Fiona was on my doorstep, the smugness replaced by raw terror. "My mortgage payment bounced. The bank called. Dad always pays it from the family account. What is happening?" "I think Dad is having some cash flow issues. Maybe you should ask him about financial responsibility, or get a job." By Friday, the dominoes were falling publicly. The frozen account meant missed payments on my father's secret business loans. Creditors started calling the house. A lien appeared on one of his development properties. The Ellis Capital name, once gold-plated in our local circles, was starting to tarnish. The final blow came at a New Year's Eve party I didn't attend. A cousin, who'd always been kind to me, sent me a video. It was my father, drunk and belligerent, cornered by my uncle, a blunt, retired accountant. "What's this about you using your mother's trust as a personal slush fund, Bob?" my uncle demanded, his voice carrying. "And selling everyone Sloan was a beggar. Martha showed me the bank notices. The trust was never yours to play with, and Sloane's the trustee." The video panned across the horrified faces of the family. The narrative was crumbling in real time. My mother was weeping in a corner. Fiona was trying to hustle her father away, her face a mask of humiliation. My phone, now back on, buzzed with a new flood of messages. Apologies, demands for explanation, expressions of shock. I ignored them all. The only person I responded to was Jeffrey, the bank manager. His email was succinct. "Forensic audit complete. Findings: systematic misuse of trust assets, unauthorized transfers, evidence of intent to defraud. Report has been filed with the State Attorney General's Office per legal obligation. Subaccount 21 will remain frozen. The principal has been moved to a secured trust for your benefit only, pending final court orders. Miss Chen wishes to compliment your meticulous record-keeping. I closed the email. It was over. The weapon he'd tried to use to shame me, money, the family's perception of it, had blown up in his face. He wasn't the generous patriarch. He was a fraud, propped up by the very daughter he'd derided. The following months were a lesson in quiet reconstruction. My father faced a state investigation for financial misconduct. He avoided criminal charges by agreeing to a massive civil settlement, repaying the misused trust funds with interest, which effectively bankrupted his personal holdings and several of his shell companies. The shiny facade of Ellis Capital collapsed. Fiona and her husband had to sell the McMansion. She finally understood the cost of her smirk. My mother, after a period of stunned silence, reached out. She came to my apartment, looking smaller, older. "I knew," she whispered, crying into her tea. "Not all of it, but I knew he was creative with money. I was just so afraid of the boat rocking. I let him hurt you to keep the peace." "There is no peace built on lies," I said. Not unkindly. It was the truth she'd have to learn to live with. We have a relationship now, but it is smaller, more honest, and on my terms. As for me, I flourished. With the toxic drama gone, my business doubled. The secured trust, now properly managed, provided a safety net I'd never had, but I rarely touched it. The satisfaction wasn't in the money, it was in the ownership of my name, my work, my truth. At a small family gathering the next Christmas, one I hosted in my own home, the ghost of the previous year hung in the air. My father was not present. He was living in a modest condo, his empire gone. Fiona, humbled and working a real job for the first time, helped me in the kitchen. "I'm sorry," she said for the 10th time. It was starting to sound like she meant it. "I know," I said. Later, my uncle pulled me aside. "Your grandmother," he said, his eyes twinkling, "she was a sharp one. She left you that trust with the final 21 clause because she saw the weakness in your father. She knew you'd be the only one with the spine to hold the line. She'd be proud." I felt a pang of love for the formidable old woman who'd seen me clearly when no one else did. As my family laughed and talked in my living room, a softer, more genuine sound than the performative cheer of years past, I realized what I had truly gained. My father's lie at the Christmas table had been a gift. It was the final, unforgivable provocation that forced my hand. By shaming me for begging, he had given me the perfect public justification to finally pull the thread that unraveled his whole world. I didn't have to defend myself that night. I just had to walk away and make a single phone call. The truth, armed with the right authorization code, had defended itself. And the answer to his "how could you" was the same as it had always been, the same one I'd carried since childhood, now finally given power. Easily.